little disappointed in book publishing because I thought that we would see more transformation, but instead,
in 2023.
yeah, in 2023. And by transformation, I mean publishers doing things differently. But we saw a lot of the same thing. The things that did change, obviously, Simon and Schuster was bought by a private equity firm. Penguin Random House didn't get it. Penguin Random House also lost their CEO, and is restructuring parts of the company. We saw a lot of people exit Knopf that had been there for a really long time.
And wait, can I just interrupt you? Like the exit of the Penguin Random House CEO was tied to the fact that they lost out on that acquisition in court, right?
That's what I think. That's what a lot of people think. I think that, it was a really big gamble. And no matter what, I think personally that Marcus Dole was really pushing for it.
Who is Marcus Dole?
He was the CEO of Penguin Random House, like total, like global. And Madeline McIntosh was only CEO of Penguin Random House US. So both of them departed. And, I think that no matter how you look at it, generally when any company fails in a merger, you see a changeover in the C-suite, because those are the people that wanted to acquire. They did all the work, and now it didn't work out. And Penguin Random House had to pay over $200 million to Paramount. And that's a lot of money.
Right. I think we talked about that last time you were on.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of money indeed.
That's a lot of money.
So,
and that hurts and that hurts Penguin Random House's bottom line.
And that's kind of the backdrop. I mean, that's the backstory of 2023 as we now head into 2024. Obviously, some of that business is going to color your predictions for how things are going to go this year. And I guess we'll start with Simon and Schuster, which, and now I'm having a moment of panic in my brain. That is Simon and Schuster was the publisher that Penguin Random House failed to acquire.
Yes.
And so your first prediction for 2024 is that Simon and Schuster, which subsequently was acquired by KKR, which is, explain what KKR is to people who are not business savvy like me.
KKR
meaning that I'm not business savvy also.
KKR is a private equity firm. They, have a lot of different investment interests. They came up in the 80s and 90s, were very big. And they, one of the things that they did was acquire Toys R Us. And a lot of people out in the business world feel like they ran it into the ground, into bankruptcy. But at the same time, I think that, there was nowhere else to go with it, because you have Amazon and Target and Walmart. Toys R Us just wasn't going to work. No matter what, it wasn't going to work. So I don't necessarily blame them for that. They had dipped into the publishing world, and I'm drawing a blank, but they have an audiobook company. I can't remember whether or not they sold that or they're still holding it. But one of the guys on the board there, one of the execs there, has a pretty deep history in publishing. So, the thought process really is that at least someone has an interest in publishing there.
I was going to say, because it's like when you tell me that a holding company or a holding company, right, with like a ton of different investments, all sorts of different business interests, suddenly owns Simon and Schuster. That seems ominous to me, because it's like they don't know books, they don't care about books, they only care about the bottom line, and that's it. Like, is that how you see it?
No, I see it. Every company cares about their bottom line. I mean, it's a capitalist society. That's the way it is. But I think that what people have to remember about KKR and Simon and Schuster is that KKR isn't necessarily running Simon and Schuster. They just installed a brand new board of directors there. And that's who, John Karp, the CEO of Simon and Schuster, has to answer to. He is also on the board, but he also has to answer to them. And the board also has Madeline McIntosh on it, who was the CEO of Penguin Random House US. So now Penguin Random House lost their CEO, who knows that business very well and what they're doing at that company, to their competition. And I find that fascinating. They also have a former TikTok executive who played a big role in, the emergence of book talk. They have an executive from YouTube, and they have an executive from Disney, among others. And that, to me, signals that there are going to be a lot of changes there, in a good way, though, because now you have this board who has experience across the entertainment industry where publishing should be paying more attention. And they have a different view of what perhaps should go on in a publishing company to make it more profitable. And one of the things that I said in my predictions that, I think is going to happen is you're going to see some, executive reshuffling there. They might shut down imprints that are not performing well. And John Karp is well aware of which imprints aren't performing well. They have a lot of imprints in their children's division. And that is where sales are somewhat suffering the most in the industry. And I could see them, consolidating some of them. Same thing for adult trade. And by adult trade, it's, general fiction, nonfiction. I don't see every imprint staying as is. I think there's going to be consolidation. I think that you might also see a couple of new imprints there. And one of the things I said in my predictions is if they want to lock in Colleen Hoover for the long haul, give her a romance imprint there and put it under Atria Books, because that's who publishes her at Simon & Schuster. Then you have sort of the same thing that was given to Elle James, the author of 50 Shades of Grey, at a different company. She has her own imprint, and it's doing very well. It's a romance imprint. So that's where I see things going. I think that, some people fear that, but I don't think that they should, because if they can publish smarter, they should do it.
Well, I mean, I think I'm on board with the idea that we need to see some experimentation, particularly from one of the bigger publishers in terms of how the sausage gets made. And that's going to involve some mistakes. Like, not everything works when you're in experimentation mode, but we do have to try some new stuff, right?
We do. And, something else that I think you'll see from them is they're going to expand their audiobook profile. So they may very well open up an audiobook division of their own where they don't have to rely on, say, Audible, because that gives them the opportunity to collect more consumer data that's coming straight to them instead of all these people who have Audible subscriptions with Amazon, and Amazon having that data. I see publishers kind of making a shift to gather more data of their customers, which should have been happening for years.
Well, yeah, I mean, not to interrupt, but it's like as you were saying that, I was like, wait, Simon & Schuster doesn't have its own audiobook division?
It does, to market them, their own. But here's the thing that they can do. They can create an audiobook division where, everything gets recorded by them. They're the ones that put it out on a platform that they create. for audiobooks. And then they can produce something similar to what Audible does with different people, where it's an Audible original. They could do an SNS audio original where it's exclusive to them, whether it be a celebrity or, a very popular author or something, so that they keep it there instead of Audible making deals with certain authors and celebrities to do one-offs, like, an Audible original, whatever essay. Jessica Simpson did a few with them, not where she didn't write a book, after her memoir, but she did record Audible originals, like, and read essays, and people bought them. So it's another revenue stream that Simon and Schuster can have by doing this. Right now, it's just whatever audiobooks they have, and they work with Audible, and they do have some of their own. They have a very robust audio division, but what I'm saying is that I can see them bringing it all in-house and not licensing to Audible, and that is a game changer for them. That could be a huge game changer for them.
It does seem to me, maybe I'm going to state the obvious here, but it seems like Amazon outfoxed the publishing industry on so many fronts. Like, right? It feels like the e-commerce, the sale of books online, the audiobook business that they acquired.
Yep.
I guess Amazon owns Goodreads. I'm sure there are things Amazon owns that are related to publishing and books that I'm not even aware of. But it's like, where was big publishing as all of these changes were happening? Like, what missed opportunities is how it feels looking back.
I think big publishing was just worried about their books selling, and that's it. And while they were worried about that, Amazon created its own publishing company. So, oftentimes when you have Prime and you get an email at the beginning of every month with, maybe like 5 ebooks that you could read for free if you're a Prime member, they are often published by Amazon, because why wouldn't they promote their own books in that way? So, I don't feel like Amazon is a threat to publishing in that way, because their interest is not hugely in books. That's the thing. Their interest is in other things on that site and e-commerce. So books aren't a priority to them. But the thing is, they have such a hold on the consumer because of them, because of the quickness that someone can get a product. And that's where we're at as a society. Click the button and I can get something same day from them. Why wouldn't you? I think, publishing was way too worried about how many copies of books Amazon was taking, Amazon rankings, pre-sales, all of that, and not focused enough on how could they compete with them in a way, which I think is, might be shifting a bit, but it's hard because, we'll get to it in my predictions, about 70% of all book sales happen in e-commerce, and Amazon's market share of that is more than half.
Right. So for this first prediction, Simon and Schuster restructures, they consolidate imprints, they shut down some imprints that are underperforming. There are personnel shifts, particularly in the upper ranks, to try to get things going. They invest in audio. And you have this interesting board, as we were discussing earlier, that is comprised not only of high-level publishing industry veterans, but also people from places like TikTok and Disney and YouTube.
Yep.
And so hopefully in that kind of like laboratory, we could see some innovation and some new approaches and, some new business strategies that might be more like, for me, it's always like, I hope this is better for the authors. Obviously you want the businesses to succeed so books can succeed, but hopefully this is going to trickle down, not to use that maligned phrase, but do you see it that way? Do you think that if Simon and Schuster does some of these things, that it could potentially redound to the authors?
I think it'll give authors a bigger opportunity to do different things, especially if they expand their audio division. But I think the major thing with any publishing company, especially the big five at the moment, is finding new revenue streams. And that's why I brought up doing, kind of like Simon and Schuster audio originals, where, you get the big names to do something exclusive to them, and you see a revenue stream from that. Whether or not overall it's good for authors, I'm not sure yet.
TBD.
Yes.
All right. So number 2, we're now moving on to the second prediction that you make, which is that Goodreads further implodes. A prediction that implies that Goodreads is currently imploding as we speak. So,
yeah, Goodreads. I will die on this hill. Goodreads is mostly useless. I know that a lot of people don't think it is, and I'm aware of that. And people point that out to me a lot online. But at the same time, as I say over and over, I have never been in a meeting where an executive has said, gee, thank God we did a Goodreads campaign because it really blew that book out of the water and got it on the bestseller list. That doesn't happen. I think what it's become is very toxic. And you have this review bombing going on, which is when a book isn't published yet, and there's a campaign to basically, leave 1-star reviews under it. And that's what happened to Elizabeth Gilbert, because her book was set in Russia. And, God only knows if they were like bots or whatever, but there was a slew of 1-star reviews that caused her to postpone the book. And I don't know if she's going to end up publishing it.
okay. So wait, like when we talk about review bombing, like I remember the Elizabeth Gilbert case. And I know that has like geopolitical implications, and it was just shitty timing because of the war in Ukraine and that whole thing. But there are other instances. Wasn't there someone who, like, didn't an author get caught, like trying to undertake a review bombing campaign on another author? So that's another way that it happens. I guess my larger question is like, who the hell's taking up time out of their day to review bomb people on Goodreads? Because it requires organization, right? You have to like rally people to this cause. Who are these people? Like, what the hell's going on?
You could say the same thing about trolls online, period. Like, get a life, There was an author, a debut author, who created several fake profiles on there and started leaving negative reviews under other debut authors who she saw as her competition.
My
God. And a majority of them were authors of color. The author who made the fake profiles is white. First, she blamed it on a friend, and then she came clean and said, she was having mental health problems, alcohol problems, all those things. It doesn't excuse the behavior, though. And part of it is also, this toxicity on that platform where authors get so invested in how many stars they get on there. We're all susceptible to a reward system, and we have been programmed like that since we were in elementary school. Get an A, you do a good job. Perfect attendance, you get rewarded, and so on and so forth. That never kind of leaves people sometimes, and they need that validation. So a lot of authors are attached to Goodread for those reasons. And sometimes on there, when you do, a giveaway of an advanced copy of a book, sure, it could be name recognition for an author. But again, it doesn't have meaningful implications for book sales. And by that, I mean, you can be on there or not be on there. It's not going to make a difference for your book so much. And I've heard back from people who have told me that booksellers use it, that librarians use it. Okay, fine. That's fine. But there's got to be a better way. And one of the things that would have to happen for it to improve, I think, is for it to divest from Amazon, meaning Amazon sells it. to
What is
someone.
what is Amazon doing that is making it more toxic and less useful? Is it just because
They don't pay attention to what's going on there. I mean, again, their interest is not so much books. It's definitely, yes, they like to sell books, they like for their products to sell, but as an e-commerce site, there's bigger fish to fry. So Goodreads has its own staff. I actually sent them questions when I wrote a Substack about Goodreads being broken, and their head of editorial marketing got back to me with, the party line of, we're doing all we can to moderate, and, we're going to look at some accounts to make sure that this doesn't happen. And that's all good and fine. But until you really truly make a commitment to make that platform better, it's not going to improve. It's going to be the same old, same old. So I expect more of the same this year from them. And I wouldn't be surprised if something even worse happens, than one author making fake profiles. You can't be in a situation where you have books listed up there, because as soon as they get loaded up into Amazon, you can add them to Goodreads. They automatically get added to Goodreads. So if you're an author and you have a Goodreads profile and your publisher has put, the data to upload into Amazon, your book is on Goodreads, right? So, and it could be months before your book is published and people haven't read it yet. There's like 21-star reviews. That shouldn't be allowed. End of story.
yeah, they shouldn't even
And
open they shouldn't open a book for review until the book is published. That seems
no,
like an easy fix.
well, it should be. I think it is. It's the easiest fix right now. And the thing is, Amazon doesn't allow book reviews under books on their platform until the publication day. So, what I mean, people have argued the fact that, the for Goodreads, pre-publication reviews help. Do they? I don't think so. I really don't think so. The data does not point to Goodreads helping in any meaningful way with sales. And if an author is overly focused on that, they should pull back some. And I also think it's partly because the publishing industry as a whole doesn't educate authors well enough on the process of, publishing, and check in with them and see how they're doing before their book comes out. It's a very stressful time. And, you have to take care of your authors, both their business, and you have to make sure they're doing okay mentally. And I don't feel like publishers are, doing that. I mean, would it kill a publisher to have a committee that's just author wellness? No, it would
I was
help
going to
them.
say we need to have Simon and Schuster add a team of psychotherapists to their board.
I'd be happy to lead the charge on
I
that.
was going to say, no one. And by the way, like I'm sure there are authors listening who are like, yeah, no one checks in at all. Like
No.
you're lucky to even get like a call from your editor on publication day.
Yeah.
With some of these
Yeah.
they're just so busy. They're like, whatever, it's just another product off the assembly line.
Yeah, and it sucks, I mean, I have clients who barely hear from their publisher, and I'm just like, why are you publishing their book then? Why are you putting something out when you're just going to like leave the author in the lurch?
Right.
It's not the way the industry should run. And so what they really need to do is be more author focused. They're profit focused for sure, but they need to be author focused. Every publisher will tell you that they are, but they're not.
Right.
Unless you're making them a gazillion dollars.
And there has to be a way for author focus and profit focus to commingle. Like they seem to be related. Like, right? Like it would seem to be beneficial.
Yes.
To adopt this kind of strategy where you're actually taking care of the people who make the products that you sell rather than treating them like nobodies. That's wild.
Yes. I believe that every imprint should have at least a couple of people, maybe 3 people on a team that are just author relations people. And they are the people you go to, that an author can go to with questions about the process.
Sort of like
And
it's like HR, but for authors, like
exactly.
as like as like contractors essentially.
Exactly. Some like a helpline for authors. And like, what happens is that and I'm happy to do it, with my Substack. I end up doing it by proxy, in my Substack, and so do a lot of other people with their Substacks, and writing about the industry and their experiences and what goes on. Publishing can't stay afraid to tell their authors the truth. And that's where I have a problem. And that's where I used to get in trouble all the time when I worked in house, because I don't, I don't sugarcoat things. Authors deserve to know what's going on. But after you tell them, you also have to make sure that you keep in touch with them and make sure that, they're doing okay, because it's a tough thing to publish a book. It's not easy. It's just not easy.
That's right. Well, speaking of publishing books, we are now on to number 3 on your list of predictions for 2024. And that is that shorter fiction will rule the roost. So you think that like and you, I think you define a good length for a novel as like 70 to 80,000 words.
Yeah.
That doesn't seem super short to me.
It's
But
not.
what
It's
you're
a good
saying,
length.
but what you're saying is that like the 150,000 like word doorstop of a novel is going to be harder and harder to sell.
Yes, for a couple of reasons. One, that means the book has to be more expensive, because paper's more expensive, and shipping costs are more expensive. So the consumer is going to look at that and be like, I'm not paying $40 for that hardcover. Yes, they can get it on Amazon for a little bit cheaper, but as a whole, if you're clocking in at over 500 pages, and I'm talking about like 600 pages to 1,000 pages, there's this great meme that goes around on social media sometimes, and it's like, I ain't reading all that. And that's what when I was an agent, if somebody sent me a query and they said their book was 200,000 words, that was a no from me, because that is too long. You're gonna have to cut a lot of chunks out of it. But where I'm coming at it from is someone who studies consumer behavior a lot. And consumer behavior right now is shorter is better. People moan about 3-hour films. People want 90-minute films. People want short episodes of TV, 25, 45 minutes, fine. They want the same thing with books. And if you want to capture the attention of Gen Z and Gen Alpha after them, you're going to have
is it Gen Alpha? Is Gen Alpha's next after Gen Z?
Yeah.
All right. That sounds kind of cool. A Gen Alpha.
Sure.
Yeah.
You're going to have to look at the behavior there. I mean, TikTok videos are usually 3 minutes or under. The shorter, the better. And that's what makes that platform great. One of the things. And look at social media. Twitter is 280 characters. Well, unless you pay and you want to write 100,000 words on there. But, Threads, same thing. There's a character limit. People want things in short clips. That's what it is. It's like it's just where our mentality is. There are definitely audiences for longer novels. And I'm not saying that longer novels won't sell, because they will to a particular audience. I mean, if you write a complete biography of someone, that can clock into, close to 1,000 pages, and there's an audience for that. But for the masses, that's just not going to work. It's not.
So like the Infinite Jests of the world, they had better be really spectacular. Otherwise, it doesn't make business sense. I mean, it's really it's a much bigger risk for the publisher to publish a book like that, especially by like a debut author.
Absolutely. And from a publicity point of view, if you are publishing a long book like that, you have better make sure you're able to start on the publicity at least 6 months in advance, because you think people moan at 3-hour movies, you want to talk to a book reviewer that you have to send 1,000-word book to? No.
Or hey, or a book literary podcaster.
Yeah,
I mean, this is
exactly.
something that I run up against where
Mm-hmm.
I read 2 and 3 books a week, and someone will send me a 750-page novel, and it could be by an outstanding author, and I'm always like, I can't do it. I don't have the
No.
time. It's too much
Mm-hmm.
for
It's
me
true.
to in the churn of what I'm doing for this show to read a 750 like 2 750-page novels a week. Like that's crazy making.
Nobody wants to do that, you
It,
know? And the thing is also, if the longer the book is, the longer it's going to take for a person to read it. They may give up on it, and they might not finish it and move on to the next, or it prevents them from buying more books because they're like, I'm not going to buy another book until I'm finished with this 1,000-page or 750-page book. So shorter is better.
in general. And I mean, but with like, I would give like a shout out to like Don DeLillo's Underworld and, the Infinite.
Hmm.
There are like, there has to be a place in the world for these bigger books because they can be, they can be wonderful, but from a pure business perspective, it's tough.
Hmm. Very tough.
And so 70 to 80,000 words, do you think anything shorter? Cause like, I've had the same thought when it comes to people's attention spans and digital
Hmm.
culture that like maybe like novellas are going to see their day in the sun where it's going to become like maybe like way more popular than it previously was for people to read like a 25 or 30,000 word book. You think that there's
Yeah, I do, and I'm kicking around an idea along those lines that I'm not going to talk about
no,
publicly.
you're going to break news on my show right now. You're going to
No.
It's going to be a publishing house. I'm going to guess. You don't have to confirm or deny, but it's going to be a publishing house that focuses on that length.
Yes, if anybody wants to invest, talk to me.
There are
Yes,
many venture capitalists listening
I,
right now.
I am kicking around the idea of starting my own publishing company. Yes, you're the first person I've told.
Look at that.
So,
Breaking news here on the Other
yes.
People Show. So you also advocate in your predictions as you're talking about shorter fiction being on the upswing that publishers should pay attention to other products in other verticals that are selling well. What does that mean?
That means that right now you have teenagers going into beauty stores like Ulta Beauty and Sephora buying $60 skincare and from a particular brand called Drunk Elephant. I'll use that as an example.
Great company name, a great brand name, by the way.
Yeah, they I have never seen so many products cleaned out totally around Christmas time. That brand is on fire right now, right? But
Why?
it's not TikTok influencers, packaging, you know, you have these teenage girls going in there and buying $68 moisturizer.
What is it? Like I've never even heard of this, but like what does the branding look like for Drunk Elephant? Is it like
It's very clean looking. It's like white. It's white with like bright colors on the top and the bottom, and they have a really good like tiny elephant logo. It's clean beauty also, which is very important to Gen Z. If I'm a publisher and I have something that might align with their branding, I'm getting in touch with them and seeing if there's a collaboration there. I'm seeing, is there a Drunk Elephant book of beauty? Is there something that I can do with that brand with other authors? Would they be interested in that? That's how the thinking needs to be at some publishing companies, or else you're not going to get that coveted audience, which is 18 to 35 or younger. I have a daughter who's about to turn 16, and I looked at a trend report of what Gen Z got for Christmas. It was literally everything on her list. So you have to pay attention to that stuff. And I don't think a lot of publishers do. I've worked for enough of them that I know that they're not really looking at trend reports in other retail areas. And it's so important to do that because, as I've written before, your customer profile for a book has to include those things. What brands are they buying? What podcasts are they listening to? What shows are they watching? What stores are they shopping in? That you have to do a profile like that and apply it to a book.
That
And I don't feel like publishers are doing that. And I don't understand why. It's like, let's keep producing as many books as we've always produced, put them out there, see if they stick. And, then you can't complain that something's not selling, because are you really trying to sell it? You're not.
right. Are people lazy? I mean, I can't imagine. I think people
I
feel
don't
like
think
they're
they're
working hard.
lazy. I think they're understaffed and underpaid. And I think that, there are probably really smart young people in marketing departments who know exactly what I'm talking about. But either no one's listening to them, or they're so overworked and understaffed that there's no time to do any of this, right? So, some companies have centralized marketing, like overall, there's at the way S&S is structured, I can speak to this because I work there, is that they have someone in charge of all the marketing departments. So there's a centralized part of Simon & Schuster where, someone oversees like all the marketing managers for all the imprints. And then each imprint is assigned a marketing manager. So my question is then, if you have that centralized person, where are the people within there working on brand collaborations or trends and informing different imprints at a publisher of what they should be doing with certain books? It can't always be, well, we're going to market on TikTok. Well, we're going to do this on Instagram. Who cares? If you're not looking at the brands that people are paying attention to and purchasing from, TikTok is on track to bring in $75 billion this year from their shopping venture, which means like they have product on there. Brands can have their own stores on there, and it is so easy to buy something off of there. It's ridiculous. It's easier than Instagram. So what is happening there? Like, there's a disconnect. Why? And so if you're not really trying and you're not improving in those areas, you can't complain that your books aren't selling. And you cannot rely on the media all the time, because, as we'll get to, that is also disappearing. So it is more important than ever to find different ways to market books.
So where do you get these trend reports? I'm curious.
All over the place. Some of them there's some people writing great ones on Substack. I have access to different things because I'm still in my MBA program. I pay a good amount of money for Vogue Business and something else called Glossy that talk about, beauty and fashion trends. I also subscribe to Modern Retailer that gives me a lot of information about what different brands are doing and what's going on with them. Every publishing executive should be reading those three things.
So, okay. Just out of curiosity,
mm-hmm.
These trend reports that you read for like 2023, I'm imagining it was like retrospective 2023. Mm-hmm. In addition to Drunk Elephant, what are some other brands that you took note of? Can you think of any off the top of your head that are really moving product and doing well?
Yes. One is a company called White Fox. They make sweatshirts, and they're like $70 sweatshirts. My daughter wanted one for Christmas. And as I started talking to other parents, they're like, oh yeah, that's like the big thing. So, and I work a lot from Starbucks, and I see, high school kids come in. Every girl has a White Fox sweatshirt on.
Why?
So I don't know.
What the fuck is going on?
They're not even that cute, but it's a thing because of the influencers on TikTok. The brand takes off. They're smart. They know, and it catches on with the right people. And then you have but here's the other thing. You have scarcity. They run out. So when you can't get something, what happens? You want it more.
Yeah,
right?
It's like Cabbage Patch Kids or whatever.
Yes. I mean, that's a big one. Converse is doing huge numbers with Gen Z, huge. The resurgence there is pretty incredible. UGG definitely also still up there, sold out of these mini Uggs. They're like platform Uggs that only go up to like part of your ankle.
Yeah, no, my daughter has a pair of those. All the girls wear those.
Yeah,
Wow.
that there and a couple of other beauty brands that just, there's one called Sol de Janeiro as a beauty brand. They do lotions and spray mists. Impossible to find like a couple of their spray mists totally sold out. And then you have something like, every girl of a certain age has a Stanley Cup, and that is one of those. It's like a Yeti, it's insulated, it's water, they carry it around everywhere with them, and they're doing fantastic business. And just recently, this started in right after Thanksgiving. Starbucks did a collaboration with them and did a drop, which means, the product, there's a certain amount of product. It's only available for a certain amount of time. When it sells out, it's not getting restocked. It sold out in a day, all of them, everywhere.
At Starbucks.
So they decided to do another one. And this one was with Target and Starbucks. Special Valentine's Day. They marketed it as Galentine's cups. All it is, and I can't wait to see your reaction to this.
Oh boy.
All it is one pink cup, one red cup. That's it. And people were like stomping over each other in Target to get these. It got really bad. And they sold out in a day, completely out of stock at Target, at Starbucks. And because people were such animals trying to get them, they're not restocking now. So that's what publishing is up against. And I don't know that they realize that.
What I want is a magazine or a Substack or a blog or just some publication to do a forensic analysis of how this shit happens. Like, how does a cup become this like coveted item? It's an insulated cup. It's nothing special. It's pure branding, right? It's like marketing and branding, and people have identified but I want a like serial kind of podcast to unlock why, to trace that, because I don't understand. I do not understand these phenomena or how things take off. And it doesn't even seem commensurate with the, intrinsic value of the product. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's way out of proportion.
Do you know how much those are reselling for online? One of them, $300.
Wow. So they're like collector's items.
Who knows? It's a cup. Who cares?
Someone else has drank out of it. It's disgusting.
That's what's happening though, because I'm sure some of the people who snatched them up for just to resell them, like concert tickets. So the scarcity is the thing that drives people to want it more. But the reason why it caught on in the first place, again, is TikTok influencers. The more people who post about it, the beauty of TikTok is that it takes away the reason for you to have decision fatigue, because it gives you what you want when you want it without you having to think about it. The minute you open up TikTok, it gives you what you want. It knows what you want. You don't have to search for it. When's the last time you searched for something on TikTok? I never search for anything because it gives me exactly what I want when I open the app.
Because the algorithm is so sophisticated.
They have a very, very sophisticated AI algorithm.
All right. Why is TikTok feeding me like plane crashes and like animal attacks?
I don't know. What are you thinking about?
I don't know.
What are you thinking about?
I log on to TikTok. I log on to TikTok and there's like a lion attacking its like trainer. I'm just like, oh my God, it's like awful.
What are you searching? What is you searching for?
Nothing. I'm putting up my little weird podcast videos that nobody watches. And like,
I don't believe you.
I don't know. I'm a sick puppy. That's all I can tell you. So let's go to number 4. As we are talking about TikTok,
yes,
where you predict that TikTok, which is, I think the parent company is called ByteDance. Is that right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So TikTok / ByteDance launches its publishing division. We know that this has been in the works, but you think it's going to happen in 2024 officially?
I'm almost positive it'll happen in 2024. I know that they've hired editors. I know that they registered a name for the publishing company. I don't remember what it is. And I know
TickBook.
no,
What do you know any of the editors that have gotten hired?
I know of one.
Who are they? Can we say their name or not?
I'm not going to say the person's name, but she was a romance editor for one of the big five, and they hired her. And so now you have TikTok, who has this very sophisticated AI algorithm who targets customers, targets users like nobody else can, starting their own publishing company. And, I also know that, they've offered contracts to particular, romance or thriller authors. They're very much focused on, my understanding is they're very focused on genre fiction. So very much romance, very much like thriller, maybe true crime, stuff like that. Nothing, I don't think they're going to do anything literary because I don't think that's where they're at right now. Maybe if it works, they will. But what do you think is going to happen when they start their own publishing company? They're going to use that algorithm to their advantage. And then traditional publishers are going to be in trouble because, TikTok is going to make their venture a priority. And they're the ones that have major relationships with big influencers on there. And they know who to reach out to, and they have more data than you could possibly imagine.
And money. I mean, they can they know who their influencers are, and they can just say, hey, yep, I want you to trumpet this book that we are publishing and we're going to pay you. And it makes financial sense to them. Yep. So just so people listening and me as well have a clear understanding of what this publishing business that TikTok launches is likely to entail. I'm imagining that no one really knows until they do it, but what we should be anticipating is that TikTok is going to launch its own publishing business and will be able to fulfill orders. Like you'll be able to, an influencer will say, hey, I love this book. If you want to buy it, like click the link or whatever. And then you'll be able to go and make a purchase. Like there's a point of sale situation happening.
I don't think they're going to do printed copies. I think it's going to be strictly ebooks.
No, no overhead.
No overhead. Why would you? You don't necessarily need to. I mean, they might do limited printings. They'd be smart if they did limited printings.
Scarcity.
Again, yes.
Just like they'll do drops at Starbucks and people will have there'll be riots.
Which is part of the idea I'm kicking around as a publishing venture. You do it and you make it available for a certain amount of time. And when it goes, it goes. And with some smart marketing, you could sell a lot of books if you know who your audience is, So I can't see them not doing that.
Yeah. Wow. So yeah, that to me is a little bit more interesting from an innovation standpoint than even Simon and Schuster, because Simon and Schuster feels more entrenched and feels like even the people like Jonathan Karp on the board and what's the woman who was at Penguin, Mary McIntosh? Is that what you said?
No, Madeline McIntosh.
Madeline McIntosh. Apologies. So nothing against these people. I'm just saying that you're sort of coming at it from this background in traditional publishing and might be less inclined to sort of experiment or blow things up in the way that people at ByteDance might be ready to just try shit.
Yeah. And the other thing to remember about TikTok is the amount of brand partnerships they have. And they have an entire department dedicated to that. So,
but the question is, do they have an author relations department teamed with or staffed with psychotherapists?
If anyone at ByteDance would like to hire me as a consultant, I'm available, and I can tell you how to do that.
I will console authors. You can pay me to console authors.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll use my microphone. I'll talk to them in my podcast voice. Make them feel better.
I do it every day anyway. So.
Right? Yeah. What am I? It's my life.
Exactly.
So they've registered a name for the publishing division. They've hired some staff. Mm-hmm. The I think consensus, like the predictive consensus seems to be that it's going to be digital primarily as a publishing
Mhm.
venture, ebooks primarily, maybe
Mhm.
audiobooks, who knows, but probably not. And
No,
then
I mean, if they're really focused on, streamlining, it might not be audio right away.
something else that you predict is that TikTok could create its own bestseller list.
Yes, I absolutely think that will happen one way or another. So, Billboard magazine, which is, the trade magazine for the music industry, partnered with TikTok, and they have a list of the top trending songs on TikTok, and music executives look at it every week.
Because that's real metrics.
Yes. And so why isn't that happening in the book world? Why isn't there something like that? Why isn't Publishers Weekly partnering with TikTok on that? Or why isn't another publication, another media outlet, say USA Today, for example, um, partnering with them or printing the top trending books on there? A lot of people like to do top trends on TikTok this week that do not include books. I think the Today Show does a little segment about that every day. Why not have someone dedicated to looking at those metrics every week so that you know what's going on? And then you're not so surprised when a book organically takes off on Book Talk, because you could see, again, I am a consumer behavior nerd and a trend nerd. So I see things like this. If you're not paying attention to what's trending on Book Talk and writing and having a person dedicated to writing getting a report together and collecting the data from that on a weekly basis, then you're doing it wrong.
Wow. I mean, this brings us to number 5
Hmm.
on your list of predictions, which is that bestseller lists will matter less in
Hmm.
2024 than they maybe ever have. And what I'm hearing you say makes me think that there is a market void. There's a void in the market for bestseller lists that have transparent methodology and real
Hmm.
data. Like so much
Hmm.
of the bestseller lists as they currently appear in places like the New York Times, even, it's very opaque. And we're like, well, what did you use to calculate this? And the LA Times bestseller list is even more so, where it's like they call a few bookstores, like at
Hmm.
least that's how they used to do it. And it's really not representative of maybe what's even actually selling the most. It's
No.
a very subjective process. So like maybe there could be, like Publishers Weekly, for example, an opportunity for them to get really rigorous about their methodology and transparent with it, and only partner with people like TikTok that at least have numbers to go by that they can share that are
Right.
real.
I find that Publishers Weekly is one of the more reliable bestseller lists because they actually print the book scan numbers next to every title, which gives you a very clear idea of what's actually selling. But still, they can still make a decision to leave something off of that list if they feel like they want to, right? So, with the New York Times, this has been written about. They will not disclose their methodology. And my problem with that is then you have authors who have bestseller clauses in their contracts, which means they hit the bestseller list, they get a monetary reward for that. If the bestseller list isn't transparent about their methodology, I don't think it's fair to offer that, because then it's inequitable. And you have authors who maybe deserve it who aren't getting it because you have the New York Times saying, we're going to put this book where we feel like putting it. And I've seen it happen many times in my career where you're looking at the book scan numbers and you're like, this does not line up, with what's actually on the list. And
Like
it's
who,
not,
I got to interrupt
it,
you. Who's making these calls? I want to know, and I'm sure the New York Times book section would never tell you, like who is saying, like, let's put so and
I
so
don't
in their
know.
book at number 7. Like who's
I
the king?
don't.
Who's the king and queen maker? You know what I'm saying? Like
I don't know. All I know is that, there's one person that you can get in touch with at the bestseller list if you want to log a complaint. It doesn't mean that they're going to do anything about it. But I've had to send so many emails or letters back when, you didn't do that by email, where you're like, this is what is going on here? This is how many it's sold on Bookscan. And then the automatic answer is, well, we don't disclose our methodology. And that's a disservice to their readers. It's a disservice to authors. It's, it's kind of an open secret in the industry that if they heartily disagree with a book politically, they're not going to put it on the list. I've seen it happen. And I've seen it happen with fiction where, a particular author might not be likable to them, and they decide to put it in lower numbers than what the Bookscan numbers are, and still tell you that they're not going to disclose their methodology. Granted, Bookscan only accounts for 80% of book sales, but come on, the numbers are not crazy different from Bookscan to whatever fakaka way the New York Times collects data. I mean, some independent bookstores report to them, sales, but no one knows exactly how they calculate what goes on the bestseller list in what position.
Well, I think that the New York Times needs to be more transparent. It needs to improve its methodology and share it with people. And they too need to hire a team of psychotherapists to consult authors or console authors for not being on the list or being.
I mean, they, the other problem is, and this goes for the USA Today bestseller list now too. They don't acknowledge self-published books. And that's also a disservice to authors, because there are romance books that are self-published that sell like crazy as ebooks. And the New York Times used to do a bestseller list where I think every once in a while you'd see a self-published ebook on their romance. USA Today used to include them all the time. And ever since they decided to take the bestseller list out of, their life section, but then decided to put it back in, the version that they put back in lacks, luster. I mean, it's a hodgepodge of everything, but self-published authors are not really getting on there. Same thing with the Wall Street Journal discontinuing their bestseller list. They did count self-published authors in ebook fiction, and you'd see romance authors on there. So it is a disservice, doing that. And again, if your methodology was transparent and, accurate, then you would include that, because you're not giving anybody a true sense of what's actually selling.
It's interesting to ponder what the list of like top 20 best-selling fiction titles would be if it were totally rigorous and totally transparent. Like, what would it say about the culture? It might be depressing, to me anyway, if it was like Lust in the Garden, #1, or whatever. Like,
I think I could whittle it down for you. This is what it would be. It would be Barbie versus Oppenheimer. That's what it would be. It would be like the huge pop culture, popular, commercial stuff you would see. And you do see that on there now, but I think you would see more so, because if they added self-published romance or other genre authors on there who sell a big volume as ebooks, you would see a completely different bestseller list. And, I think the literary world would be cranky about it.
I was going to say, I bet you people would be. They'd be like, what is this? But maybe the truth is the medicine that we need. Maybe we need to see what the actual numbers are. I'd kind of prefer it that way, even if it would be unpleasant. I'd rather just know what's what.
Everybody's scared to hurt everybody's feelings in this industry. That's the problem.
All right. I'm not scared. Well,
I know you're not.
Yeah.
Nor am I.
Yeah.
Obviously.
So, we talked about the publishers reconsidering bestseller bonuses. I think we go on to AI, which is your sixth prediction for 2024. And you've kind of divided AI into two. So 6 and 7 are both in regards to AI and its relationship to contemporary publishing. And at number 6, you say AI, the good. So you
Mhm.
divided it into good and bad. Let's start with the good when it comes to AI.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a ton, I can say about it because the good I could talk about because I use ChatGPT a lot.
I've
Um,
never even touched it. How do you even use ChatGPT? What do you do?
well, that is the thing. People have to learn how to use it, and no one's teaching them. And if you teach people how to use it ethically, then it saves you a lot of time. So, say I am pitching media by email and I'm having trouble coming up with a subject line that'll, get good pick up or get people to notice it. Or, I kind of have an SEO brain when it comes to email subject lines
Which
or,
is SEO is search engine optimization.
yes. And so sometimes I copy and paste a description of a book and press enter and I say, please give me 10 possible email subject lines for pitching media for this. And it'll spit it back to me. And at least one of them is good enough where I'll take it and add my own words in. But it saves me so much time from, torturing myself over thinking about stuff like that. So I use it that way. It's really good also for, uh, you know, I mean, in my MBA program, if I need a theory explained to me really quickly, it can spit that out to me, and it's usually accurate with that kind of stuff because it's textbook stuff. It's stuff that has been around forever. So I think that it would save a lot of time, for marketing and publicity people if they were taught how to use it correctly. And that is really the thing. You have to know how to use it. You have to know what to feed into it to get the best out of it. And I'm not saying by any means that all that information is accurate that you'll get out of it. But if you're stuck writing an email subject line for a pitch, that could save you an hour. And my thing is, why suffer when it's right there? I mean, even a Google search now for something, you'll get, at least I do on Chrome, um I get an AI answer first, and then I have to scroll down through all the links. So that's even changed. So that's the good part of it. The bad part is what you're seeing now with authors suing AI and Microsoft because they are saying that, the AI has been trained using their work without their authorization. And I can't get into the weeds too much because I don't know the particulars of it, but the Authors Guild is working very closely with publishers on, making sure that contracts are different, have a clause about AI. And I think we're going to see more lawsuits. Um, the thing about AI is that you don't know where it's pulling information. So if someone goes to an agent with a nonfiction book proposal, say I'm just going to say it's about relationships, and they had AI write the whole thing. You don't know whose work it's giving you,
Wait,
and
wait,
that's
wait, wait.
played.
Could you get AI to write a book proposal? Could you just say, write me a book proposal for a book about the Civil War, and they would do it? I
If you're savvy enough, right, you can ask it certain questions so you can piece together a proposal without having to write the whole thing. You have to be a good editor to do it. But the problem is that you don't know whose work it's giving you. It was trained on somebody else's work. It's a combination of a lot of different books, a lot of different information, articles, everything, and you don't know what you're getting. So it's not authentic and it's not ethical to do that. But you can go in and say, can you write me an introduction to a book about the Civil War focusing on XYZ? And they'll spit something back. And if it's not specific enough, you ask it another question. Can you be more specific about XYZ? And it'll give you another one. So it keeps giving you until it gives you what you want. You could keep asking it very specific questions, and then you could just copy and paste it and format it. And that's a problem.
Do you have to pay for
And
this?
You can I pay for it because I don't want the slow version. So I get, I have the one where it analyzes data too. I can upload a spreadsheet. That is a wonderful thing, let me tell you. But you don't have to pay for it. I think eventually everybody will have to probably pay for access, but OpenAI in general, the idea behind it was to be a nonprofit. And the problem that they had where the CEO was ousted by the board and then rehired by Microsoft recently was that the board felt like the CEO was moving to a profit model, and they didn't want that. But Microsoft was like, listen, we invested billions into this, we want this guy back, and yes, it's going to be a profit center. There will be a profitable part of this. So that's where it's at right now. And a lot is going to shake out about it over the next 12 months. So we just have to see what happens.
And it sounds like on the positive side of the ledger that the utility of AI for people in publishing, including maybe authors, is that it can serve in a collaborative way to assist you. Like, it's not like AI is going to write your book proposal for you, but AI can maybe save you time on the drafting.
Yes and no. It's not a good writer. So if you're depending on it being an excellent writer, you're not. That's not the way to use it.
But maybe giving you like just like a rough something to start from, as opposed to starting from a blank page.
Yeah, I mean, if you're stuck on a title, like it's a good help. It can spark that idea in your brain. I think some people are overstating, their fear about it. I think the panic is not warranted, the way people are panicking about it. But you have to wait and see. The government is involved here. They are having people testify in front of a subcommittee in Congress about this, and they might try to regulate it in some way, which they probably should. But for right now, what I think is the most important thing is for people to understand how to use it ethically.
And you think that publishers might form like some sort of task force to help address this collectively? I mean, like, that's what you think they should do, but probably they won't. Like, it seems like the kind of thing where, like, industry wide, they should put their heads together to make sure that AI is not ruining publishing or threatening the livelihoods of people in publishing, authors most especially, right?
Yes. And what I wrote was publishing should form a industry-wide task force on it. But, I put these things out there and then I'm like, yeah, that'll never happen. So,
but at least you said it. You can always say, I said it. Yeah. But that doesn't seem, it seems like organizing across an industry like that, when you have competing interests, to get them to work cooperatively in any way, even if it's to their collective benefit, is difficult to do.
Which is so weird to me, because the music industry is the complete opposite. Record companies work with each other on copyright issues. They have committees that go to Washington and lobby and stuff like that. And I know that because my husband's a music executive, but they are much more likely to play in the sandbox together than publishers. And that's wrong. And everybody needs to, do the circle and sing Kumbaya and all get along, instead of, this secrecy, or, everybody doing things separately. There's strength in numbers. There's strength in publishers banding together to say, this is not what we want for our industry.
Yeah. They got to get it together. Why is that a consistent theme to the publishing business? Is like this dysfunction in ways that kind of defy common sense. Maybe this is how it is in business generally. I mean, you've got your MBA, so it's like, but you're saying, I mean, the music business is totally different and is much more functional in this way. I feel like over and over again, I hear about things that the publishing industry is or is not doing, where it's just kind of begs the question, why?
Because they're so precious about their own industry. And they, I mean, look, you have imprints competing against each other in the same company for the same books. That's weird, right? I mean, that doesn't happen in the music industry. you have specific labels that specific artists are signed to. You don't have labels competing with each other within the same, like Sony Music has a lot of different record labels. They don't compete against each other for artists. It's like, everybody talks to each other and they're like, okay, this is a label that's going to go after this artist because they fit best here. Whereas in publishing, it's almost like a sick game. It's almost like the Hunger Games, where you have people competing against other imprints, and there's a lot of infighting. That's the whole problem. It's a very bitchy industry sometimes, and frankly, that's why I got out of it, because I was tired of the bureaucracy. It's like frustrating because nothing gets done. You have a bunch of people who sit around in meetings all the time talking about the same crap all the time. And God forbid you have an idea, and sometimes you don't want to say your idea because you don't want to be tagged as the one to put it all together because you don't have time, because they're not giving you enough staff. So I think that, there's this secrecy that is very, it's very antiquated, basically. It's not like other people don't talk. It's like a very gossipy industry too. And I pointed something out to my husband the other day, and he was like, you're right. And he's very offline, but, I said, it's strange because I see with, on Twitter or on Threads or whatever, publishing people or authors, it's always like there's bickering, there's, it just gets very toxic. You don't see music people doing that. They don't do that.
Well, we'll have to
get
see.
It together, publishing.
I feel like the subtext is that like we need like innovators and smaller companies and startups to come in and disrupt and experiment and and be able to move more nimbly than say a gigantic publisher that has like 150 years of history, that has all of these entrenched methods and ideas about how the business should be run.
That's definitely part of it. And that's what I mean by they're too precious about it. They're too precious about, their own industry and remaining, the stalwarts, the gatekeepers and whatever. Get over yourself is what I'm saying.
All right. So I get it. And I think as we move on to the next two pieces, like the next two predictions are connected. So I'm going to talk about them in tandem. One is that you predict that social media will continue to fracture, which implies that it is currently fracturing. I think we can all see that. And then the next prediction, number 9, has to do with TikTok and its continued, growth and influence in the realm of publishing, which we've already sort of addressed. But when it comes to TikTok, like you're predicting that Elon Musk is going to bankrupt X/Twitter this year.
I'm not the only person who thinks that. There are people way smarter than me that think that too.
He's running out of money. I mean, he's just driving that thing.
He's running out of money. Some people have this weird idea that he's going to use his own money to save it. And I'm like, here's the thing about billionaires. They don't want to spend their own money to save a company. They want their investors to give them money. He took on so much debt when he bought Twitter. It is now worth 70% less than the purchase price of $144 billion. So it is in the toilet. And the advertisers who have left the platform are not going to come back. That is not happening because, first of all, the return on investment for advertising, which means, you advertise on there and you actually get metrics of sales through advertising on Twitter. That's not going to happen because it doesn't happen ever. It's like a wasteland to advertising. It always has been, in my opinion. And that's where their revenue came from. So now you have like one of their biggest advertisers, Disney, pulled out and said, see you later. And, Elon.
Because why? Because of his irresponsible stewardship and just the chaos of the platform?
Yeah. And frankly, because he let Alex Jones back on the platform. And that was a breaking point for a lot of people. Here you have the guy who's on the right, on the fringe right wing, a conspiracy theorist, a person who has again and again amplified the message that the Sandy Hook school shooting actually didn't happen,
Right.
made it very dangerous for the parents of children who were lost that day, so much so that one of them has to distort their whole entire face to do interviews because they get death threats, and you're letting him back on a platform.
To add, and then you want to put up an advertisement for the latest animated Disney movie next to that guy's tweet.
Right, and that's also the thing, like, what was starting to happen was advertisers, it was brought to their attention that their ads were showing up in the feeds of, basically right-wing extremists, racists, Nazis, you name it. They're just slapping it up there. And, the CEO of Twitter, Linda Gaccarino, who came from a very high position at NBC Universal, where she was in charge of, all advertising there, and had a very good reputation in the industry, flushed her reputation down the toilet, is really the CEO in name only, and tries to convince everybody that it's all okay there when it's clearly not. And, I think that what's going to happen is that he is just going to run it into the ground and, sell it for parts. Twitter is not long for this world at this point. It's not. And, a story dropped in the Wall Street Journal last night that had people go on the record about his drug use. And, it's not just ketamine, it's also cocaine, it's also weed, it's also, so here you have a person who is running SpaceX, which has a contract with NASA, which is a government contract. And this could definitely affect that contract because they're very strict about drug use. You have a person who is running Tesla. So you have rockets, cars, and a global social platform under someone completely erratic who's doing drugs on the regular. What do you think is going to happen to that platform? It's going to go like it's already a garbage fire. And, the only people's stuff who really get seen on there are people who pay. And now, it's more expensive. You can do a yearly plan, which is, I think, over $200. Why? What are you getting out of it? The other thing is the growth is so stagnant on that platform. Like, you're going to have the same amount of followers that you've had for a very long time because that algorithm on there is trash. And it favors the people who pay for the blue check marks. I see the only reason, why it sticks around right now, or why some people are sticking around on there, is because of sports, and I can't explain this, so don't ask me to, but it has, the API on there where you can embed videos and stuff like that very quickly for replays on sports or certain, like with basketball games, a certain play or whatever, you could do it very quickly on there. Threads isn't quite there yet, but they're working on it. And the engagement on Twitter is just non-existent at this point. I don't understand why any book people are still using it at this point. And the larger issue to me about social media and publishing is publishers and agents need to stop focusing on what kind of platform an author has to publish a book. Because if you're just relying on someone who has like 500,000 Twitter followers, you're barking up the wrong tree, because they could have 500,000 Twitter followers. What kind of engagement are they getting on their posts? I bet hardly any, unless they're paying for, the blue check mark to be prioritized in the algorithm. So that's not fair. And I hear it more and more from, authors who I talk to who have had book proposals, go out and have queried agents where they're getting told, well, you don't have a big enough platform. What are you looking for? What platform are you looking for? It doesn't matter. It matters to a certain extent for name recognition. Okay. That's what I'll say. But for book sales, that's not where it's at. You need, and the other part of it is, and I've talked about this before, is that any social media platform, you're renting your audience, and publishing is overly dependent on other platforms doing the work for them to try to sell books. And that can't be. It just can't. It has to change.
Well, and as in terms of social platforms, there's obviously the Twitter dumpster fire. There is Facebook and Facebook groups. There is Threads.
Mm.
I think Instagram comes out the best in your
Hmm.
post on Substack. Like Instagram seems to be steady and useful in
Yeah.
terms of engagement. I sort of feel that too. I feel like Blue Sky is still like invite only. LinkedIn is like, I don't know, LinkedIn bothers me, but
LinkedIn is, and I posted this on Threads the other day because there are people on Threads. See, Threads is like if Instagram and Twitter got married and had a child. So, and a lot of people, I've noticed that a lot of people on Threads were people just using Instagram and not Twitter. So they don't know how to act in like a real time situation where you're posting and you can respond to someone. So there is some toxicity on there. I'm hoping that it evens out. But what I said, I posted the other day, if you have like 5 paragraphs to write about how wonderful you are at your business, or what we should be doing to hustle, there's another platform for that, and it's called LinkedIn, and go do it on there, because again, I ain't reading all that.
no.
So Instagram is still very interesting to me because there are 3 ways to do things on there. There's the grid, where you can post a photo or a video on your grid and write a long caption, not too long. There's stories, which is really where the action is for most of Instagram. And then there's Reels, which is, Instagram's answer to TikTok. So all those 3 things are really good things to use, I feel, for authors. And if I were coming out with a book, I'd probably invest time in building, a following on Threads, and, putting a little bit of blind faith in Meta to get it together with, moderation on there and a better algorithm and stuff like that. But
Why do we need an algorithm? Why can't there just be a social media feed where it's just like whoever I'm following, I'm seeing the latest posts by them in sequential order?
because of the metrics, I mean, that's basically it, and because you have customer data that tells you what people want to see. So if you're, using an algorithm and you know what people want to see or what they're posting about, you're more likely to give them what they want without them having to try too hard.
And then
So
they
you get
stay on the platform more and you make more
exactly.
money.
Exactly. So I'll give you an example of how Twitter stays stagnant and rebuilding a following on Threads. So I have had slightly over 14,000 followers on Twitter for a very long time. I've been on the platform for 15 years. Okay. I built it, whatever. I have been on Threads since the end of October, and I'm almost at 12,000 followers.
Doing what?
And being me.
Just being you. Just that's it. That sells. Being you is it's a hot
I
ticket.
know. Well, see, the thing is, like, I was very good at using Twitter, and I understood it. I understood how to get people to engage, and I understand what people kind of want on Threads, and I
What do
give it
they
to
want?
them.
What do they want?
Well, I feel like it's a mix of things. They want eh, they want some news. They want to get to know you. I posted a video yesterday. I woke up pretty down in the dumps, and I didn't know what to do with myself. And I had my husband and I went out like early in the morning, and we didn't get snow where I am. But we did get flooding because I'm right on the water. And there was this huge puddle out in front of my house. And I was like, I'm going to take my shoes off and I'm going to go jump in that puddle, and I'm going to make myself happy by doing that. And my husband, this is the only time my husband ever films, does anything for me content wise. He filmed me because he thought it was very funny. And I put it up on Threads, and I said, I woke up depressed. I didn't know, no reason, just it was just that way. And then I saw this puddle and I was drawn to it, and I decided to stomp around in it, and it made me happy. And I said, go find your puddle today. Go play in the snow. And it went, it got well over 1,000 likes, tons of comments, people, cheering me on, saying they loved that I, that post was the inspiration post of the day on Threads and stuff like that. So I'm finding that people want to actually converse on there. They want to get to know you. And I think I've been doing a good job of that. It's also really good because it doesn't have that addictive quality to it that Twitter did, because it's not scroll and it's not a scroll fast kind of a platform. It's sort of medium. So I actually enjoy building an audience on there for now. I'm not saying that there's not jerks on there, because 100% there are, but there are features where you can hide someone's reply to your post from everybody else. So you are in charge of keeping your garden on there, so to speak, and you have to take that responsibility. But I have found that I like communicating with people on there. I have found that they're interested in what I talk about with publishing. I told a lot of stories of working with celebrities. People really like that. They just want to know you're real. That's all.
That's it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So TikTok then.
Mm-hmm.
You say it's TikTok's world and we live in it. We've sort of discussed this already. Their algorithm is good. There's some question about government intervention because TikTok is ByteDance is a Chinese company, right? And isn't there some question about whether or not this is some sort of like spy op or data collection operation? That
they could say that about every single social media platform. I mean, not obviously most of them are based in the US, but yes, ByteDance is a Chinese owned company. One of the things that our government wants them to do is make TikTok a separate company. I'm not sure if that's going to happen or not, but it got really quiet all of a sudden. The government interference and whether TikTok should exist.
There's probably some TikTok lobbyists roaming the halls of Congress right now.
Well, yes, and it would be really stupid of either any political candidate to discount TikTok. They need to be on there because that's where your voters are. That's where your younger voters are. So you really, the Biden administration has been criticized for not running part of their campaign on there. And I agree with that. And the reason why they're not is because, they came out guns a-blazing, trying to see whether it should be banned or not. It should not be banned, and I think what's going to happen with TikTok, and I 100% believe this will happen, is you're going to see film studios release full feature films on TikTok in like spurts and bits and pieces. I can go on there. I do this, this is my mindless scroll, like every night when my brain is done for the day. I go on there and I watch almost full episodes of Sex and the City. Last night I was watching, clips of The Notebook that were, almost the whole movie for free. So if I'm able to do that for free, why am I subscribing to streaming platforms? And TikTok is hurting streaming. And that is a problem for streaming to figure out. And the best thing that they could do is play nice with TikTok and play into TikTok and work with them, because it's not going away. It's just going to get worse, and worse for them, not worse for TikTok, because again, the beauty of TikTok, and this is a problem. It's a problem with online booksellers like Amazon. It's a problem with the interface of Netflix and Hulu. You gotta search so much on there to get to where you want, that you're wasting so much time. And then you open up TikTok and what you want to see is right in front of you without you even trying. So they win. There's no other way to say that.
All right. Well, publishing's going to be in for it. And when TikTok opens up its publishing business, it's going to be very interesting to see what the response is in, Manhattan from the traditional like Big Five or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm going to stop us here just in the interest of time, but people who are listening can read other predictions that you have. Your list continues on. And it's very interesting. And I love talking with you and picking your brain about all of this stuff. I like that you are out there thinking about this stuff and trying to think about it in new ways, because that's how cool new things happen. There have to be people
Yeah.
out there trying to figure out skillful ways to maybe break things and shake things up and make things new. So
Yep.
where can people find you online so that they can read what you have to say and learn more about this business from you?
My Substack is Publishing Confidential, and my website is kmspr.com.
All right. Are you on TikTok? Do you have a TikTok?
I do, but it's really, I'm under Kath M. Schmidt on TikTok.
Okay.
And it's just I do experiment. I experiment with content on there to see what works and what doesn't.
So your Substack is really the main base for you.
Yeah, you're not going to get anything exciting from me except my puppies on TikTok.
Well, hey, listen, puppies are exciting to a lot of people.
Yeah.
All right. Well, listen, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much, and Happy New Year.
You too. Thank you for having me.